today I want to show you a cool tool that I have, which solves a little bit of a frustrating problem, which is that sometimes it's really difficult to get your brakes not to rub. So this is the clam from a company called Birzman. If you haven't heard of Birzman before, I think it's a pretty cool company. They make some really innovative products at rather affordable prices. And this is one of their cheaper products, actually. I'll link it down below. You get 3 of them when you purchase it. You don't really need 3. You could just use 1, but I guess if one breaks or if you lose one, you have 2 extras. But I want to show you today how this small little tool can help you get your brakes set up in a way that they don't rub in a more hassle-free way than doing it without this particular tool. So let's head over to my bike, which has a little bit of a rubbing problem with the current brake setup, and I'll show you the sort of traditional way to adjust that or fix that. And then if that doesn't work, I'll show you how this would work as a way to make it a little bit more hassle-free, as I just mentioned before. So let's head over to the bike. All right, so here's my bike, and I'm just going to spin the wheel real quick, and you're going to hear that we get a little bit of rubbing. Now, it's not terrible, but it's definitely noticeable, and it would definitely have an impact on the ability for the wheel to spin freely. So let's take a listen here. You can hear there's definitely some rubbing happening around the brake rotor. This issue is particularly bad for me because I have a brand new brake pad along with a brand new brake rotor. So the tolerances between the two are very, very tight right now. Now, I could sit here for quite a while. And again, the way you would do this traditionally is you loosen up the 2 caliper bolts here. And then you would just sort of fine tune by moving the caliper back and forth until you find the exact position where it doesn't rub. There is sort of a hack, if you will, or a trick that sometimes works. So you loosen the 2 caliper bolts until the brake caliper is loose. Then you squeeze down on the lever to hold it tight to the rotors. And see here it is fully locked into place. And then you tighten it back up. And sometimes that will get the brake caliper perfectly centered. But if we try this, we can still hear some rubbing. So this isn't working for me this exact moment. Like I mentioned, the tolerances right now are really tight because these are all brand new components. So we're going to need to use a little bit more time if we were to just kind of fine tune with our hands moving the caliper back and forth. Or we can use the Birzman Clam, which is what I'm going to use today. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the wheel from the bike. So this is a through axle wheel, so I'm just going to loosen that up with my 6mm. And just get that out of the way. I'm going to use this tool from Park Tool. This is the PS1 or Pad Spreader 1, which allows you to spread the brake pad piston by keeping the pads in there. You could use a flathead screwdriver, just want to be a little bit careful not to damage anything, but I'm going to use this since I have it, and I'm just going to spread the brake pads back open to put the pistons as retracted as possible. And this here is an important step. You want to have the pads as separated as possible because you want to give yourself the best chance to actually get this centered. And if the pads are not entirely spread open, then you're going to have a harder time getting the clam in there, getting everything set up properly. So make sure the pads are spread as open as possible. We're then going to put the wheel back into the fork here. Then we want to loosen the caliper bolts here, so we're going to back those off. These are T25s. They're usually either a T25 or a 5mm hex, and it's very important you don't pull the brake lever at this point. Then we're going to take our clam, and the way that this works is that you basically slide it over the brake rotor, and then you rotate it back, so where it's going to fit is kind of right here. Now, essentially what this does is sort of spaces out your brake rotor, kind of pretends like it's thicker than it actually is. And then once you sort of set the caliper, or the pads, I guess, to that spacing, once you remove this, it'll have enough of a gap on either side where it doesn't rub, and it should be perfectly centered. So, again, you're going to slide it onto the rotor like so, and then you're going to rotate the whole thing back until it's engaged where the pads are. Okay, so we now have the clam right here. It's in the middle. It might be a little bit hard to see, but it's down there and it's fully engaged in the brake caliper. And I'm just sort of checking on the back here, make sure that it's fully in there all the way through where the brake pads make contact. So now what we need to do is we need to squeeze the brake lever until it fully locks into place. Now you can see here it's not going anywhere. And then in theory, if we just tighten down the brake caliper bolts, and we can torque these down properly later, but just get them snug so the caliper is not going to move. If we do that, let go, and then we just need to back off and remove the clam. You want to be careful here because this is pretty sharp, the rotors. You don't want to get your fingers and finger oils on it, so I'm just going to be as careful as I can. So there we go. Remove that. You can almost see there, it's kind of maybe a little bit hard to see, but the brake pad sort of left an indent on there just a little bit. You can see here where it was touching right there, right? So that means it should have worked. Now, moment of truth, does it rub? No, it does not. It is absolutely perfect. Absolutely no rubbing. So, job done. Birzman Clam, really cool little tool, inexpensive, works well, does what it's supposed to do. Highly recommended. So if you're struggling with getting your brakes not to rub, again, there are other ways to do it. There are ways in which you can just adjust it by hand or try the little brake caliper, brake lever trick. But if that doesn't work, or if you just want a foolproof way of doing it, check these out. I'll put a link down below. I'm not sponsored, but I do like these quite a bit. So hope this video was informative and helpful. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you later.